Thank you very much. So I'd like to call this meeting to order at 2:06 and begin with a, actually Sabrina, you sent me some information about Robert Buchanan. I wonder if you could comment on that, please.
Certainly. So recently, the community lost Reverend Robert Buchanan. He was a longtime volunteer with the Blue Mountains Public Library and was an avid Craigleith Heritage Depot supporter and volunteer. Blue Mountains Public Library started a program to capture local history stories from the community, and Robert was involved in connecting and interviewing local residents and seeking out images and information for that program. This work was part of the Then and Now project, which was something that was done a few years before I began, and he was instrumental in that. When the Craigleith Heritage Depot became a branch of Blue Mountains Public Library in 2016, he continued to support the heritage and history in the community through his volunteer work at the museum. And he was one of our first interviewees that we did on the Real History film with the Apple industry. He strongly advocated for the museum and the library throughout the community. And like I said, he was a volunteer with the museum, so he will be missed. And our condolences are going out to his wife, Elaine, and their family.
Thank you. So with that, I'd like to ask for a moment of reflection, please. Thank you. So moving on to the Indigenous Acknowledgement Statement. We would like to begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards of the land. The municipality is located within the boundary of Treaty 18, region of 1818, which is the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and the Wyandot peoples. I don't believe we need a review of teleconference procedures now. We've been doing this for a couple of years at this point. So I'd like to get approval of the agenda. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Gary moving. Seconder, please. Jesse Glass. Any comments or suggestions for changes to the agenda? Seeing none, the motion is to approve as circulated, including any items. Well, we don't need any items added to it. We didn't add any. So all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Now, as Andrea is muted and not on video, she is not able to vote. Just want to acknowledge that. So when I call on all in favor, there's 4 of us voting, but that's still quorum, correct, Sabrina?
It is, and certainly if to expedite for Andrea's purpose, if you do are there any against? Andrea has the ability to say no, and then you actually would have a 5-person vote.
Okay.
So you call for the vote, all in favor. If Andrea is saying no, she will make her voice known, and then we'll know that you have a 4-to-1 vote as opposed to a 5-0 vote.
Okay, that's fine. So then I'll just take a moment now to say anybody opposed to the motion, and give a moment for Andrea to do something if she wishes. And seeing nothing, the motion is carried. Now, any declaration of pecuniary interest or the general nature of thereof. Seeing none? Hearing none? Thank you. There are 3 reports to be received. The Admin 2216 entitled Action Plan Update, Admin 2217 CEO Service Update for June, and 2212 Committee Terms of Reference. I would like to ask for a mover and seconder that these items be received as information.
So moved.
Morris moving, thank you. Seconder? Jesse seconding. Any discussion? Maybe you don't have a discussion on receiving motions anyway. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to the minutes. We have two sets of minutes. So I'm going to do them one at a time. That the board approve as circulated the board minutes from the open session of May 19, 2022. May I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Gary, seconder. Morris, thank you. Any questions, comments, changes to the minutes? Seeing none, I'll ask all in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The second motion is to approve as circulated the closed session minutes of May 19, 2022. May I have a mover? Jesse, seconder. Morris, thank you. Any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Great, that motion is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes?
I didn't have anything specific. There is a committee meeting that will be moving forward with some of the recommendations that will probably come up in discussions, and that will be reported back at a future board meeting.
Okay, do we need a motion since there's really no discussion? No, okay. Thank you. Communications with the board. We have no deputations scheduled. We have no public input on the agenda. No one else is here. We do have a piece of correspondence, and I believe there was an article in the Star following up on that. So Sabrina, I wonder if you'd like to comment on that correspondence, or maybe just let people ask questions if they wish.
Certainly. I'm not sure how much our board has been following issues that have been going on in Simcoe County, but this is from one of the libraries that are part of the former Simcoe County Library Cooperative that was recently disbanded by the county. I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but I will certainly take questions from anybody who has questions maybe about the situation itself or about this letter specifically.
Does anybody have any questions?
Sabrina, how, if at all, does this affect the Blue Mountain Library Board?
I don't think it affects the Blue Mountains Public Library Board. I think that council has made their perspective known on county cooperatives and county library systems, that our municipality pays a larger share of the tax pot, so it isn't something that we would be looking at. Certainly it is something to watch from our library board and our municipalities' understanding, because this did all begin with a study about how they thought that they could become more efficient over county systems and save money. So it all started by how do we shave money out of the library budget. So on that part, it's something to be aware of. It is something that happens, we know regularly, the efficiency studies, and Simcoe County was rated as one of the higher ranked library systems. So it didn't really hold water in that way. But from us specifically, we do look at efficiencies regularly, and I believe that our municipality is well aware that we would not benefit from being in a county system, given our assessment rate, that we would be paying significantly more for other community libraries and would end up having less services in the end locally.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on that? Seeing none, I'd like a mover and seconder to receive the correspondence as information. Gary, thank you. Seconder. Getting repetitive, isn't it? Thank you, Jesse. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's carried. So moving on to the strategic plan updates and action items. We have, the first one is the action plan update for June.
So I'm sure everyone has read this. I'll just hit the highlights that we are now at just over 30% of a success. So we've had 32 out of our 105 objectives met. This is a much larger plan than we've had in previous years. Typically, we're in the 80s. We did have a large plan like this in 2020 that we ended up cutting back when many things we knew couldn't successfully be achieved during the early stages of the pandemic and lockdowns. So there is going to be a lot of movement on this over the next year. Unless there's any specific questions that people have about the actual items, I can take questions, but I have no other points to make.
It is quite lengthy, I have to say, but it doesn't surprise me. We're in the final year of a board term trying to get things well in hand to help guide a new board. So a lot of that is related to that situation. Gary.
Are there any June initiatives that we should be noting as either we're falling behind or number we achieved today? I just sort of looked at the June one. I wasn't sure.
Not really. There's a few of them that we had hoped to get into the summer months, June, July in there. I think that we're on track. That certainly will be within a month or two of all objectives that we plan. And we should be successful by the end of the year with the majority of these. As we know, sometimes the decision on how many of an item changes. If you say you're going to do it quarterly, maybe it's redundant, so we drop it down to 3, but the initiatives themselves will still be successful.
Great. Any other questions or comments about the action plan? I know for board related stuff, we've been working hard, Sabrina and I, on trying to get things lined up for all the meetings and the lead information you need so that at the meeting we have a successful discussion. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming up in the fall.
There's one item that's just worthy of noting that we had on our previous action plan that we were going to roll over to this year, and that was the social return on investment report. And we were waiting for, at the time, Ontario Library Service North to update the report. They transitioned into the Ontario Library Service, so they had sort of a year of getting their sea legs while they reorganized. And then we had opted, if they weren't going to move forward with the report and updating it for a more provincial stance, that we would do that this year. They have since started the research project to update it and to be able to make sure that it's going to meet the needs of us specifically and a more provincial look. I did join that research committee. So I am an active member now of making sure that the research, the academic research group, Nordic Research, which is, I believe, out of Waterloo University, is well understanding the needs of the survey that was completed originally by Rotman School of Business and translated into a more provincial look or regional provincial look, so it's not focused on the northern end. So based on that, we've opted not to move forward with that. It didn't make it onto our action plan, but I just know that this board was aware that we were looking to do that, and it's one that didn't make it to the final approved plan. It will be completed between January and February of 23, which is the time that we'll then be doing our annual reporting on this current fiscal. So it won't happen in this board's term, but next year in March or April, when we're doing our annual survey and starting our annual report, we'll then be using that tool to report on this year. So next year's board and next year's council will be receiving a report on social return on investment as it pertains to our area, our region, and our organization.
Great. Any questions about that for Sabrina? Okay. Seeing none, I wonder if we could move on to the community hubs, the report on the Heritage Depot renos.
Certainly, just a brief update on that. Our roof is done. I noted that last month. We did receive a sizable grant through the municipality's application for renovation, and we are currently in the RFP process for that exterior work. That is going to include sandblasting the turret. That'll be one of the areas that's not touched, with new siding, new wood or composite siding, but we'll be keeping that still original, but doing a gentle sandblast of that to be able to bring that back to the colors. And then there will be, when we get to it, a shift in color of the building, which I know the community is going to all say, whoa, what happened? The color of the Craigleith Heritage Depot was based on the restaurant color. And we had two choices to work with. One was the Grand Trunk railway system, and then the other was CN, which is the reds. The restaurant went for that maroon color, which has since become really, I think, very synonymous with Craigleith Heritage Depot. But we're going back to the original colors, which would be the Grand Trunk Railroad, which is a green and sort of a creamy color. So it'll be a two-tone building, which will be quite a shift for our more recent memories. And unfortunately, there's no photos, of course, because they're all black and white. But we will definitely be explaining to the community why that shift is happening. And it'll be quite exciting to get back to the original line that building was designed for.
You say green and red or green and white?
It's green and a cream.
Cream.
So it kind of has a cream stripe that goes right through the middle of the building. And then there would be sort of green on top and on the bottom. And that was the Grand Trunk color scheme.
And do you know when the work will be done?
It's still in RFP. The town is managing that on our behalf. We are hopeful that we'll have some things worked on before the snow flies, but we know the timeline for contractors is quite pushed out. The project has to be completed by 2024. So a good portion of this may be happening next year, and some smaller pieces might be happening in the fall.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead, please, Andrea.
Thank you. Through you, the chair, I'm delighted to hear that you're honoring the railway history, having grown up in a family that tracked railway history in this area. It's very important, I think, that we can share that message. So will you be able to put a placard or something out so that when people aren't catching the news release or catching the other communication methods, you can share with the community the historic background to making that color switch? I think That would be really great, because it would be a great educational piece about remembering its early days as the Grand Trunk.
And it might be lovely to have like a heritage plaque that's put out front of the building that shows some of those old images and even color correcting a few of them, to be able to look at the various stages of the depot over the century, really over the decades, because there would be images of all of the, even though most are black and white, but all of those eras where it was Grand Trunk, then it became CN, then it was the fine dining. And we know if you come into the building, you see those pieces, but people don't always see it from the outside when they're just walking on the trail. So excellent idea.
Excellent, thank you.
Good idea.
Just a question.
Yes, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I know we talked about this very briefly, and I'm glad we're going back to the original design. I'm sure in good time the community will embrace it, but there'll be a moment to remind them of our past, I guess. I'm interested in the roof because it's heritage. What type of roof did they do? And I wonder about the doors as well, how you replace it. And what other things are involved in the grant? Just for a quick thing.
So the roof, we ended up going with a composite that appears to be a cedar shake. Originally, it would have been a cedar shake roof, and then during renovations 15 years ago, they went to asphalt shingle. So we obviously did not want to be back at asphalt shingle. We wanted to be something that had the appearance of the historic building. Much of the historic nature of the building has been changed over the years. So what we're trying to do is honor the heritage of the building by bringing things back either to a similar state or at least in appearance. Obviously, to do a renovation on a building of that age would not be, it would be cost prohibitive for us to do the similar types of construction. And by working with the composite materials, we're dealing with some of the issues that we have specifically at that corner of significant wind shear and the sandblasting that happens as the wind comes up from the bay and comes down over the mountain, which is why we've had shingles flying for the better part of 5 years with every little rainstorm or windstorm that we have, and why our paint is regularly being sandblasted off of the building. So it is a composite that looks like cedar shake for the roof. We didn't touch the turret. The turret was still original with the cedar shake. So it's in fairly good condition. It's everything that was done recently that of course would be the problem areas, because those are not meant to last nearly like an 1800s building is. But they are all designed for the wind, the sand, the types of storms that we have. So we're hoping that by the end of this project, we'll have a building that supports the vision of the original, that brings the heritage appearance to it. It certainly won't all be the same heritage materials, but it'll celebrate the spirit of that building and do it in a way that the town will have a better financial plan for being able to maintain that structure.
Okay, thank you. And just what other things will get done, and the doors in particular, I guess, are.
The doors are being done, windows are being done, the siding is quite rotted, so the siding is being done, and that will be the bulk of basically the exterior. So everything on the exterior is going to be touched except for the turret, which will be sandblasted and painted in a similar color scheme to the siding, the composite wood siding that's being put up. The doors will be updated. Many of them, when they did a revamp of the building over the years, they put windows in where there weren't windows originally. So we'll be taking some of those windows out because windows and glass are really the enemy of museum objects. So we're going to take out the ones that were not there originally. We'll also be looking at the HVAC system. Although that is most definitely a needed item, we're focusing on the exterior, and then we'll put what is left into that aspect of the HVAC.
Okay, this last follow-up question. I'm interested in the front doors. Are they hard to source those doors, or what are you thinking?
The doors that are original to the building will go into our collection. The doors that are not original to the building will be at the disposal of the town, however they choose to do that.
And what do you replace them with?
We will be doing doors that are custom designed to look like what the original should be, while still meeting the AODA and crash bar and security bars that are needed in the certain areas. And many of them are wood right now that were just not properly designed for the slope of the area. So there's a lot of rot down at the bottom. So we'll be replacing them that way.
I'd like to welcome Joanne. See
Thank you.
Arrived at 2:30. I was able to join the meeting. I know you're a bit late. I hope you got your car without any
Yes, I
trouble.
did.
Yeah.
The rental, yeah.
Yeah. And just to let you know, Andrea is only able to come in by phone, so she will mute and unmute as necessary to participate in the discussion.
Thank you.
So can we move on to the empowering services and the CEO service update, please? Which is F3 on the agenda.
Yes. All right, so from our admin report, sorry, I'm just trying to, I have so many windows open that I lost it. I apologize for that. There we go. All right, so the admin report, again, we have our statistics. We have been, again, gathering more things each month as we continue our expanding of the type of statistics that we're doing. We've now started doing outreach in Ravenna. Our numbers have been small. You can see outreach at the pop-up event at Ravenna was 5 in the previous month, but I would argue that the 5 would have said that it was a valuable experience for them. We're still trying to promote that we are at Ravenna Hall every 2 weeks. Tomorrow is our next one. Originally, we were doing the full day because we were trying to figure out what was the time that people needed us there. So now we're there from 2 until 4:30. So staff come a little bit before and stay a bit after for cleanup. But that gives, we had some parents who said that they would like to be able to come right after their children get off the bus, which is about 4. So that gives them about a half an hour there. And then people can come in the afternoon for holds pickup. If they tell us they want their materials there, we bring the materials to them at that location. Tech services are there. We have staff who can work with many different areas. So we're hoping that that will pick up a bit. We did have a number of people who said that they really wanted rural services offered in Ravenna. So we'll see how it continues to go. Outside of that, just a few key things to note. We did win yet again another Telly Award. This is for the Apple Harvest Silver. So we have 2 silvers. We're hoping to trade up on our 3rd one to a gold. But this is another award that we'll be able to announce on next year's annual plan as well. So the work that has been done through the Real History has garnered so many accolades. It really is a testament to the collection that our museum has on site, the connections that our museum has to the local community experts who hold much of that local history knowledge in their families, and the partnership that we have with Mountain Goat Films, who has been able to do just the most fantastic film quality. There is another film, the 11th film, that is being launched next month, and that is our Blue Mountain Pottery film, Blue Clay. And that is going to be a limited release. So we're going to be releasing that at the Blue Mountain Pottery Expo in July, at the end of July on the Saturday when we're doing the on-site expo at the Beaver Valley Community Center. It's free by donation. We ask people to come, certainly see the film there. We're then going to pull the film back though, and we're not going to release it after that. Normally we put these up on our website because we have applications in to be part of a variety of film festivals under short films. So there's some limitations on how much airtime it could have gotten. So we're going to hold back and see if we are accepted into any of the film festivals with it. And if so, then we'll wait to get through those before we do further releases. So if you want to see that particular film, that is your one opportunity this summer will be to attend the Blue Mountain Expo, and all of the information is on our website. So outside of, the congratulations for the team for that one and our community members who have come together, that's our big announcement for this month. And then, of course, we do have another GoVax bus that is coming on the 28th of June. So if you haven't received your booster or initial shots, or children need their pediatric shots, they can handle all of those between 11 and 7 o'clock at the Ellie Shore parking lot on the 28th. So short of any questions that the board may have, that's all that I have.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I do have a couple of things I'd like to suggest and put into key messages that were actually from your report. So maybe it's best to do it now. You have something about the visitor library cards in your report. I think that probably should go in under, I guess, community hubs. You also mention homebound services. And that relates to organizational excellence. I know it's a service, but we actually referred to homebound services as part of organizational excellence. And what else did I have? You mentioned a pottery scavenger hunt, which I think is a great example of a partnership. And I'm wondering if it can go into organizational excellence as well, because it's a partnership item.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. I have listed those in, and we'll get that into the key messages.
Great. Thank you very much. So on to my report. Just want to tell you that we made a deputation to council on the strategic plan on May 16th, and that might have been just before our last meeting, so you probably already knew about that one. We also attended the June 6th council to present the year in review, and that was really the video that we showed, and with opportunity for questions afterwards. I don't know if there's any comments, Sabrina, you want to make about that, or Andrea, who was also present at that, obviously. I mean, I myself, every time I watch it, I'm always impressed at just how much we managed to get accomplished. So congratulations to our staff, because I just think it's amazing.
Thank you. I'm not sure if Councillor Matrosovs has any comments, being a counselor at that meeting who was presented to.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. No, I think that I'm glad that we had enough time to actually experience the whole presentation, and it was the recognition that these video annual reports are actually grabbing people's attention even more is awesome, because the list is very long of all the things that have been done. So to see that in booklet form is going to take people longer to work through. So I think that was appreciated, not just by council that was able to see it, but those who chime in and watch the videos virtually as well.
Great. So after that meeting with the council, Sabrina and I met, and we spent about another couple of hours laying out the board agendas for the rest of the board term. So we did update the action plan in terms of timing to make sure we captured everything that we discussed also at the May meeting, to make sure that we have it all scheduled in. So I won't go through what those are, because you have it from the action plan, but that took a while, so we don't inundate you in any one meeting like we did with the whole day-long meeting. And then I've booked with Joanne and Sabrina to meet on June 30th, and that's the job of sorting out the contents of the legacy document. So we've got that lined up, and it'll come to, I think it might be the July meeting that we're looking at reviewing that work. So it could be later, because it's not so needed until the very towards the end. Yeah, so those are the main. Those are the items I wanted to comment on in terms of my report. Does anyone have any questions?
I just checked with staff, Madam Chair, and we've had 69 views at this point of the year in review.
Oh,
So by far more than we would have had people reading a print report, I'm sure.
yeah.
And it's only really been out for a few weeks. It has not been in our key messages yet, so it will be in the key messages with the link.
Great. Good. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the committee terms of reference. And we know that they were updated based on the mandate and the new strat plan. So there was only 3 sections, I think, were updated. And the main one would have been, I think, section 8, which is about mandate. And that pretty much is a quote from the strat plan. So did anyone have any questions or comments to make on those terms of reference? Yes, Morris.
Thank you. Not so much questions on the actual terms of reference themselves. Excuse me. But my question to you is, and this, we go back, I think, a couple of years when we decided to temporarily disband the idea of subcommittees because of the small complement of the board, with the option that, of course, anytime we needed them, we could always resurrect the idea of subcommittees. My question to you really, Laurie, is don't we need board decision to establish a subcommittee or subcommittees, which I don't think we've done?
I don't recall how we actually decided that we would run it basically within the context of the board, but it would be up to a new board, I think, to decide if they wanted to, in effect, name people to committee, or they want to leave it as something that we're handling within the board. And it probably depends on the amount of work that the committee would have. So we just decided, Sabrina and I, that it was worthwhile updating them so they're referring to a new mandate of the new strat plan, and then let the new board decide how they wanted to handle the existence of committees.
Well, why talk about a committee and give it a name at this stage when, as a board, neither this board nor the next board, they haven't said we will have a subcommittee named such and such to do this, this, and that. I'm only saying we took the time, I don't know, a year ago, whatever it was, and Sabrina can back this up. We decided as a board not to worry about have 3 people in a subcommittee, because that's the maximum you can have with the number we have on the board, on the general board. Have three in the subcommittee reporting back to 7, and then another subcommittee, and probably or possibly a different 3 reporting back. It seemed odd and so forth. We did decide that we could operate, what did we call it, committee of the whole type of thing? Sabrina, you can comment on this better than me.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. We did decide that because of the pandemic, we were not going to have committees because the committee work was not working as well over Zoom as the face-to-face working groups were. And much of it was then being handled in sort of a different format. And we were dealing with a lot of the stuff in our Zoom meetings. But on our action plan, we said that we were going to do the committee structures and have them completed so that they are done and on the books, because our committees are always, standing committees are always those that are our goals. So our main areas, which in this case would be community hubs and organizational excellence. The empowering services is the operational side for staff. So those will be approved by the board today, presumed, but the board doesn't have to appoint people into it. So they will be on the books, they'll be established as our committees, and we can make the decision if we need to have people actively working on those, or if we're going to just be doing small tasks as we're doing now. So for example, the organizational excellence, we're we're doing small sort of working group by saying the legacy project is being done by the chair with Joanne, as opposed to saying it's the organizational excellence committee that's doing it. But we did put into our action plan that we would be moving forward with the committee structure of the terms of reference so that they were done and on the books.
Well, I do believe that committees are appointed by boards and automatically disbanded by boards, by board decisions, if you like. And we haven't had a decision to, I'll say, resurrect, get back to these two committees. These are new committees, but they're similar. We haven't had a decision to go back to that committee level.
And I'm not proposing that we do that, but we're just really doing an administrative process to have the committees with an appropriate mandate, because the intent is that the committees always reflect the strat plan. So it's really an update to that policy. I mean, I don't feel strongly. I'm certainly not suggesting we reestablish committees at this point. But let me hear other people. What you think? Should we just, my suggestion is that we just pass it as administrative process to get the mandates updated, or we can leave it. So I see Jesse and then Joanne.
Well, Madam Chair, thank you. Every board has the power to strike off committees. And prior to the pandemic, I think we had several committees of which each board member was expected to serve on at least two, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right.
When the pandemic hit us, the decision of the board was that it was, and I think Sabrina has already indicated this, the board decided that it wasn't feasible to keep running committee meetings. It was too difficult from a logistical standpoint, and the board decided that it would take over the normal activities which were being handled by committee prior to the pandemic. So right now, where we stand, as far as I am aware, from an administrative standpoint, is that the committees have been basically abandoned. I can't say that they have been formally done away with. I don't think we ever passed a motion to close down and abandon the committees. But the fact is that they have not been functioning for the last 2 years. And I agree, Madam Chair, that if the decision is made to resurrect those committees, it would be within our power to do that now, but we're close enough to the end of our term that it really should be the mandate of the new board as to whether they want committees, and if so, what kind of committees, and if so, how often they should meet, et cetera, et cetera. Those are my views.
Yeah. And Joanne? You're muted, Joanne. Sorry. Sabrina, are you able to unmute Joanne yourself?
I'm not. I have
Okay.
asked to unmute, but that's as I can mute you, but I cannot unmute you.
Bottom left, Joanne.
She's on an iPad, I think, and that's part of the challenge. No, she's not. So move your cursor to the bottom of the screen, and you should see a mute button at the very far left.
Right.
Your name?
There we go. Yay.
Thank you. Sorry, this is my husband's computer and it's an educational experience every time. I have to agree with the previous speaker. Starting the process of resuscitating committees at this late date seems to be redundant, if you will. I'm thinking of the documents that Lori, you and Sabrina and the staff member came out with, not as a committee, but boy, did it ever wow everyone. I'm meeting with you, and I never thought of it as committee work, just something that has to be done, straightly administrative. I'm not quite sure where you're coming from, Morris.
But just to say, I think we all agree we're not trying to resuscitate the committees for this year. It's really an administrative process to bring the contents of the committees up to date with the new strat plan. So Gary, what was your, I saw your hand.
My view is, yeah, there's no appetite for committees at this point in their term. I think that's clear. So administratively, what I'm hearing you saying is we're just making a connection between the strat plan and what it takes to implement it. Whether we do it or the next board does it really doesn't matter. So really, given that you will be there, Madam Chair, and Sabrina will be there, you've already got the work if you need it. I guess I'd like to know your view. Do you think it's better that this board at least leaves those links in place? And then I think we should, and if it doesn't matter, then
Okay. I don't know, anyone else want to make a comment?
Chair, Madam Chair.
Andrea, go ahead.
Thank you. I agree with the previous speakers. I think taking care of alignment, because we're not handing over a blank slate in terms of strat plan, etc. We're handing all that over. So this is simply just to make sure that the description of what these potential subcommittees might do would line up to that work. So since we're handing over half of that work, we should hand over as much administrative simplicity as possible to the new board so they can decide if they wish to strike up the previously done subcommittees, or invent new ones, or perhaps decide not to strike them up. That will be their decisions, but I can see that you're just trying to make it a smooth connection to the other documentation we're handing over to the new board.
Thank you. And Morris, I saw your hand up.
Yes, Andrea touched on something there. I think this whole thing is the prerogative of a new board. Do we want, one of the questions they will answer is, do we want subcommittees? And if we do, what are the mandates? The mandates are now on paper, or at least on the computer. They could be handed to the new board on December the 1st as a suggestion. It's all you have to do, and they can bring them up themselves.
Yep.
I don't think we have to decide now what the mandates for those committees shall be. I think we can leave that to the new board.
Okay. But the point is that the mandates are lifted out of the strat plan. So we're just bringing the whole process into alignment, and then the new board makes a decision on how they want to operate. Anyway,
so you're really wanting us to look at and, I suppose, approve mandates for committees that are ghost committees. They don't exist.
They're suspended at this point. Yeah. So that's what I'm suggesting. So if well, then why don't I just my question had been, did you want to discuss any other than if you want to discuss the contents of these at all, which are basically they're picked up from the strat plan, and then we can go back to I can ask for a mover and seconder and see if we have support to approve it.
If I may add something, Madam Chair, I'm just pulling up our action plan. Last month, we did actually approve that Operational Excellence 2.5 is that we will be reviewing these committee terms of reference and updating them for the new strategic pillars. So the mandate of the board was actually completed, was made last month when the action plan was approved. So this is directly falling from what we were told to do out of the action plan. And again, doesn't mean that we have to appoint members, but the strategic plan pillars are how we create our standing committees. The mandates are already determined by what is the focus of that particular area, which is the goals and the vision of that area. And it's just lifted in there. But we did already set the mandate to complete these terms of reference when we approved this plan last month.
Okay, Morris.
Madam Chair, I'm sure that if I were a new member coming, or a member of the coming on the board next year, I would want to. I would want to be the one who will decide what the mandates for these committees are, not some people who have left. I mean, personally, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the mandate, but why do we have to do it now? I don't think I don't think we are the people who should approve those. We can hand them over to the new board in detail, and I'm sure you will, and ask them for approval.
Okay. And I think we've heard your argument. And I think the way to test that is to look for a mover and seconder and deal with the motion, which is that the board approve the committee terms of reference for community hubs and organizational excellence. So I'm looking for a mover. Gary? Seconder? Joanne? Yeah, thank you. So all in favor? Okay.
In favor.
Opposed? One opposed. Okay, so that's carried. Okay, so moving on to the next motion is that the board receive strategic plan discussions as information. May I have a mover and seconder, please? Well, I'll move that. Looking for a seconder. I didn't see any hands for seconding. Joanne, thank you.
I can second.
Okay, oh, Andrea, I'll do Andrea this time. So that's to receive the strat plan discussions. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That's carried. Other business. All candidates meeting updates. And I think that would be Sabrina talking to us about that.
Yes.
Point of
So,
order, Madam Chair. Can I just ask you a question before this discussion begins?
Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to, through the chair, if this discussion is just simply community information about upcoming candidate meetings, I will retain myself in the meeting. If it's anything in particular about communication specifically with the library to candidates, I will declare a conflict.
No, this is just a general information that will be available to the public. There's no conflict for you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sabrina?
So there was question on if candidate meetings were going to be happening in the community, and we had talked about this at one point in the past, and I just wanted to let the board know that we have signed on as a partner for the candidate series that'll be happening. If you remember back to the previous election, there was a group that was doing that, and new bodies have moved forward to be able to partner on this, and our role is to provide the location and the technology. So Blue Mountains Public Library is partnering with Climate Action Now, the Blue Mountain Ratepayers Association, the Chamber of Commerce. There may be more people coming out in the future that are partners. It will be a Monday evening. We're still setting our timing, but we're assuming 5 to 7, 6 to 8, something like that again. And it will start after the close of the nomination period on the Monday, and will run right through to the election period, where every candidate will be invited to sign up for a date. There may be more than one on a date, given the short time of proximity and potentially many candidates. So I just wanted to make that known that we are going to be a partner, and the advertising will be stating it's at the Ellie Shore Library.
Okay, so that's really just an information item for everybody. So I'd like to now move on to roundtable and general updates by the board. And I'll let you start this, Sabrina, if you will.
So the roundtable, the only thing that I have, I mean, there are a number of events that we are doing, would be, of course, again, to push the Go Vax bus. We're really trying to do our part to support the community on vaccination. There are going to be 4 various vaccination opportunities in the community. This month will be the 28th here. There'll be one in July that the town will be offering as a pop-up clinic. And then we have one in September early, and then there'll be another one happening, I believe, in September as well with the town. Other than that, that's about all that we have for our roundtable.
Does anybody have anything they want to mention here at the roundtable? Okay. Seeing none, can I ask for a motion, a mover and seconder to receive information as roundtable discussions? Joanne and Jesse. Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. So moving on to key messages. You've already noted the suggestions for additions, Sabrina. The only other comment I had is the 3 o'clock is the Go Vax bus. You've included under community hubs, and I'm wondering if it's more of a partnership item, which would be an organizational excellence.
I can move it to that location.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments around the key messages? Oh, I did wonder about the one about the Ravenna Hall pop-up. I think that belongs under community hubs, does it not? Because that's where we talk about multiple locations for services. I was just going back to sort of thinking about our strategic plan discussions and where these things kind of fit. Because they are, and I know from those discussions, there were some things that were kind of fluid. You know, they kind of fit in more than one spot. But I'm trying to stick with where they landed when we did the final plan.
Yes, our Ravenna was talking about bricks and mortar and pop-ups. So that does fit with the strat plan under our community hubs.
Thank you. Anything else about the key messages? Okay.
So those will be going out early next week.
Thank you. So can I have a mover and seconder that the board approve the release of the key messages for June 2022? Gary, thank you. Seconder, please. Joanne, thank you. Any other discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is July 21 at 2 p.m. Just so you know, Sabrina and I talked about planning some social time around that because we've hardly seen each other in several years now. And with the new board or with the election and change of board appointments and all that sort of stuff coming up, this may be the best opportunity for us to spend some time together. And we can do it outside at this time of year, whereas we wouldn't be able to do it more towards the end of the term, which would be like November. So that's what we were thinking we might do, make it an in-person meeting as well. If people are comfortable with that. Again, it would be in the gallery, so we would be spaced. And that, we talked about either doing a bit of a luncheon beforehand or a bit of a hors d'oeuvres and things afterwards. I don't know. So, Sabrina, have you done any more work on that, or is it really up to the board which way they prefer to handle it?
Whichever the board chooses, we'll find good ways to do both.
Okay. how do people feel about that? I saw Joanne, that looked like that was a positive reaction. Any other comments? Are people okay with this? As you say, it does bring us physically together, though hopefully outside. If it does rain, we'd probably end up in the gallery, but still we can distance quite easily there. Anyway, so any thoughts on that, please?
It's a great idea.
Great idea.
Start with just a little luncheon, 12:30, and some time to chat and be ready for 2 o'clock. My suggestions, but afterward works.
I didn't hear what you said about afterwards.
Afterwards, fine too.
Okay, great, good. Thank you, Jesse. Any thoughts? Morris, Andrea?
Are you proposing that this be? Are you proposing that this be inside or outdoors?
Hopefully outdoors. That would be the intent.
So
Though the
physically
meeting
where?
in the courtyard,
Okay.
which is a space that hardly ever gets used.
Okay.
Certainly as a governance thing, it never does. So the courtyard, but the meeting itself would have to be in the gallery.
So what I hear you saying is that there'd be a social gathering either before or after the formal meeting itself.
Yes.
I'm all for that.
Great. Any other comments? Any preference you want to state before or after? You're okay. So you'll leave it up to Sabrina and me to sort out the best approach. Okay, great. It will be nice to actually have everybody in the same room, but in order for us to do it as a recordable, broadcastable meeting, we'll have to bring our computers or arrange the library to have something available for each of us, or for whoever who can't bring their own. Because we'll still have to go on to Zoom and have the camera going and the mics going while we actually see and talk to each other. That's the only way to record it. Gary?
But if we're meeting in person in the library, do we have to record it? We never used to record it.
It can be a hybrid for our ability to put it out to the community. So we wouldn't actually need to have our sound on and all those types of pieces that we would be participating through Zoom, but to be able to record us and broadcast out to our community, we would still need to do that. And I can be in touch with people before the event to work out logistics.
I think your question, Gary, is do we need to do that? Because we didn't used to when we met in person.
Right.
But I do think it's an important new opportunity. COVID didn't give us many good opportunities, but I think this was one. And it makes our meetings far more accessible to the community. So I do think it's important to continue to record and make it available.
Yes, initially I think we decided we'd do it for a limited time period, and we kept extending it because COVID keeps extending. I guess I'm just saying if it's logistically challenging, we do what we can do, but if we can't get it done properly.
How are you going to get your? You have to.
Have to
okay.
regular board minutes and things like that.
No, it is. I agree. It's logistically challenging to do it particularly as a hybrid. I found that a challenge. If there's issues around inability to bring a computer, I think probably the library staff can make sure we do have a computer available for everybody. Maybe not for all of us, but I mean, most of us probably don't need one from the library. That would allow us to continue to do that. And we're also pursuing a grant to be able to get the gallery properly wired so that it can be done without it being challenging.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The gallery is more challenging than the boardroom. But to be able to continue to distance, that's why we're trying to keep it into the gallery. If we move to the boardroom, it is much more logistically feasible, and actually we don't need to be on Zoom. We have the ability right now to use a system that can capture both video and sound on site in the boardroom. So that's another option. But that would mean that people would have to be comfortable with being back to the boardroom table.
Mhm. Yeah. So that's a bit of a challenge because that's a relatively small room and that would have 7 or 8 people in the room. But we can manage it in the gallery with a little bit more effort.
Yes.
I think you're saying yes. Yeah. Do we need any more discussion on this? We're okay with the plans that we've put forward for July? Gary?
Well, I guess I'm here, and it's really for the next board is in future they may choose to do this in the boardroom, and it's not too bad. But you don't want to impede on all the gallery activities all the time, but you're trying to get a grant so you can actually use the gallery as well.
Yeah.
The way the world's going, clearly.
Yeah. So basically we'd be using the gallery once a month or 10 months,
Right. You just see
10 times, I guess, in the year.
in the gallery. And even though when you know the board meetings are, sometimes you need to have to displace whatever's going on in the gallery for the sake of the board meeting. The board meeting, board room, that would be take pressure off the gallery if things are happening and you don't want to change. And it sounds like your grant might allow you to go both ways.
The grant will allow us to have both options. It is through, we've put it into Ontario Trillium Foundation, but we won't even hear until October and November. So it won't really impact this board. So what we would need to do is figure out how this board would like to move forward. Certainly there's simple options for us to work in the boardroom that don't mean we all need to have a computer present. But then you have to make the decision if you're comfortable with being in the same space, you know, masks off so that you're able to actually be picked up by the sound system. Or if you want to work in the gallery, then we do need to have individual laptops that will capture the video and the sound for us. So there's those two options right now. And then we hope next year we'll have more advanced technological options.
Carrie?
So I think the gallery makes sense for July that you're proposing going forward. Has the boardroom ventilation been looked at or changed or improved to allow board meetings?
There is a HVAC system, circulation system that is in there that actually meets all the HEPA filter requirements, same things they've done with schools and other small office spaces. Outside of that, that's the one thing that we've done, but that does improve your ventilation system. It is a small space, so that's just the decision you need to make. But there is a HEPA system that we can use.
Yeah, well, the problem is that we can't foresee what the COVID situation is going to be like in July, whether it will be higher or lower or approximately the same. The theory, of course, is that during the summer months, people are outdoors more and the numbers are likely to drop. Speaking only for myself, I would not be uncomfortable and I would not be comfortable having a meeting in the boardroom.
But you would be okay in the gallery?
Yeah, I think so, depending on the degree of separation, but generally, yes.
Thank you. Joanne?
I belong to the seniors exercise group on Wednesday mornings out of the gallery, and there's a dozen of us, and we physically separate and sweat gently. And it's been working for the last month or so, and we're sad that it's going to stop in end of June. So.
Well, okay. So based on that, I think at board meetings, we also sweat gently, if at all. So it might be a similar situation. Okay, I think I don't think we need to hear from anybody else on this. I think we've agreed that we'll be doing a social in July in the courtyard, if at all possible, unless we would get drenched, in which case we would move it into the gallery and we would have a in-person meeting in the gallery for the July meeting. Great, thank you. I believe that's all we have on our agenda. Oh, I would like to just adjourn the meeting. Now it is 3:15.
Wow.
Thank you,
I
Lauren.
think that is the earliest.
Good
Wow.
meeting, Lori.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, see you guys in July. We'll let you know whether it's for lunch or just straight starting out with the meeting.